It's a huge blow to one of the Central Coast's most promising projects, a speed shuttle from Gosford to Sydney. The company behind the service has gone into voluntary administration after a dispute with the main creditor, a West Australian mining company. The Super Shuttle team has spent 6 years and $4 million on the project. Speed Shuttle is counting on a new agreement with the mining company to keep the ferry dream alive. Meanwhile, as one fast ferry proposal takes an apparent dive, another rises. Port Macquarie's Chamber of Commerce has been approached by an entrepreneur to run fast ferries between Port Macquarie and Sydney. Travel time 3 hours 50 minutes.
It's called a Tricat, a very powerful vessel and quite large. It seats 303 people.
A 48-metre, $21 million vessel is ready to go. All that's needed is a steady supply of passengers, both business and tourist.
Coming into our beautiful waterway, the beautiful Hastings here on a fast ferry after travelling up the east coast of New South Wales, and then you're walking across to, let's say, the Bayside, the Sheraton complex that's being built now, and into our beautiful town. I think it's a real winner for this town.
A one-way trip would cost $90, and backers will be looking at possible shuttle links with other cities along the coast. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
The new Quest apartments rise like a beacon for economic growth in a part of town which has had a lamentable decline in recent decades.
Having these units open today sets the benchmark and sets the standard of development in this area, and I think the Hunter Street West area is going to flourish because of this type of development.
72 apartments in all, from single to 3 bedrooms, are selling from $200,000 to $350,000. 41 have already been sold, and 67 of the 72 will operate as serviced apartments, catering for both the corporate and tourist markets. With hundreds of units newly built or being constructed throughout the Newcastle CBD, the Lord Mayor says the demand is still there for more developments like the Quest.
Well, our research tells us that we're not anywhere near the market being flooded, and indeed the market's being taken up by people who are living in the units.
And City Hall will be the venue tonight for a public discussion on what should be happening with Foreshore Park.
We're required by the Act to have a plan of management for every piece of parkland, and this is the Foreshore's turn.
There is a meeting tonight, people do have to say. That's right.
More consultation with the Aboriginal people, and this is a great starting point of it. I don't presume to know everything myself, but there are some people back in our community who has some ideas, and I'll go back and discuss it with them, and hopefully get back to National Parks and Wildlife for some good ideas.
Whale watchers on Merewether Beach suddenly became aware of calls for help, finally spotting a swimmer in a rip some 300 metres offshore. As the alarm went up, 2 local surfers paddled out to support the man in trouble. One of the rescuers, Scott Jenkins, running to his nearby house to grab his board.
I saw a board coming first and I saw him waving around a bit, so I watched and there was all these people and I thought I'll go and get my board, try and help him bring him back in.
While the two board riders could support the swimmer, they could make no headway against the rip. So the Westpac rescue chopper, on the scene in minutes, performed a textbook rescue, lowering a crewman on a winch rope, then with the swimmer secured, lifting both clear of the choppy surf to deposit them on shore. The rescued surfer, 31-year-old Brian Bennett of Tanambit, was taken by ambulance to hospital to be treated for mild hypothermia. Meanwhile, the second rescuer, veteran surfer Phil Woodcock, stayed out to catch a few waves. For him, it was just another afternoon at Merewether. Jim Sullivan, NBN News.
Months ago, when workers from National Textiles were laid off, they staged rallies and formed picket lines. But now, several months after they won most of their entitlements, many have gone back into retraining for the workforce.
And as we move into e-commerce and further into, particularly with the lodgement of your business activity statements, I think computer skills within probably the next 2 or 3 years will be just criteria for any job.
Already 5 of the students have found new jobs in the Hunter, and they say it's all thanks to the course they've studied.
Till they went out and got something like this, they didn't have anywhere to go other than into manufacturing, and I mean it's a dying race.
The computer training teaches them to use Word, Excel and a program called Mind Your Own Business, which caters for the GST.
That's what we've been concentrating on the last 6 weeks in particular, is getting their GST skills up, because I mean GST affects everybody.
Thus, armed with a comprehensive understanding of both the GST and up-to-date office computer software,
I think as they can go out to this now and they can walk into any admin office and probably be rather effective.
Students graduate next week. Adam Harper, NBN News.
In November 97, Raylene Skier's brother was killed riding his motorbike in a hit-and-run accident.
When you get a phone call or the police knocking on your door at 2 o'clock in the morning telling you you've lost a loved one, they go away and then you're left there realising, well, who do I turn to for help?
Ross Michael Smith was just 24 when he died. A record of everything his family has had to deal with since he became a road victim has formed this tangled map. Last night, Raylene held a meeting to start the Newcastle chapter of Vehicle Incident Support Team Australasia to help provide a clearer path and take an active role in changing driver behaviour.
We're hoping to start doing some lectures at driver offenders courses, letting the offenders know just how much damage they could do to a family.
The comb-crested jacana has made the old Richmond Vale Colliery Dam near Mulbring its home, and it looks like the welcome mat is out to stay. Its existence at the lake has recently been threatened with a proposed $400 million tourism resort development before council. Local residents claimed construction on the lake would leave the bird homeless.
They've seen up to about a dozen at any one time, and the residents have been concerned that the development not impact on their habitat.
Included in the proposal was a 360-room hotel, 750 tourist units, a restaurant, conference club and an 18-hole golf course. Developers have now dramatically altered their plans.
They intend on lodging some amended plans with council that will delete the resort components from the bushland areas of the site and move the development right back from the water's edge up to about 50 metres and look at restricting access in and around the lagoon.
Other forms of animal life are also assured of a longer lake residents, like black swans and sea eagles and the friendly neighbourhood cows. In other development news, a Central Coast company has given the long-awaited vintage country club intended for Pacolban a jumpstart. Stevens Group bought the project earlier this year and, in conjunction with Greg Norman's Medalist Golf Venture, will submit amended plans to the council in the next 3 months. Catherine Turner, NBN News.
Living with type 1 diabetes, which is most often diagnosed in childhood, means lifelong injections of insulin and regular blood glucose tests. But now a new study is hoping to find the answer to some of the questions surrounding the cause of this potentially life-threatening illness.
We're looking to see which brothers and sisters of children with diabetes are at risk of getting diabetes by measuring antibodies, and then we're trying to see that if the gut permeability is abnormal, if that may actually be the underlying trigger that lets viruses inside the body and therefore trigger diabetes.
Researchers at Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital stumbled on the idea childhood diabetes could be linked to the gut after looking at various other conditions such as Crohn's disease.
If you look at relatives of those people, they have abnormal gut permeability, so it may be that their immune system in the gut is somehow altered, and that may be the trigger for them getting autoimmune diseases, but no one's looked in the brothers and sisters of diabetics. So that's what triggered our interest, I guess.
And if their theory proves correct, the ramifications for sufferers and their families could be great.
We might find that the brothers and sisters, that first of all we'll be able to see who's at risk of getting diabetes, because we can predict that with a blood test, but we can't stop the disease yet, but in the future we'd like to do that.
The study, which will take 12 months, will include 150 children, both diabetes sufferers and their siblings. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Quarraballong, Few can spell it, let alone say they've even been there. But inside this otherwise ordinary-looking tin shed on a property like most others in the area are 3 extraordinarily dedicated men. And like you'd find most days of the week, Mick Crampton is watching over his 2 sons, Jamie and Ben, all 3 preparing for the biggest fight night of their life.
I'm probably worse than what they are, mate. But they don't suffer with nerves very much at all. They're pretty cool.
Cool maybe, but this weekend the trio will land in a boxing heatwave that'll hit Phoenix, Arizona in America. The boys invited to fight in lead-up bouts before the Costas U Cesar Chavez feature.
That's where we all dream of going, it's all the big timers, you watch all the big fights, that's where they're at. And you only dream of going over there and hopefully trying to get a fight over there, so yeah, this is the start of things to come.
That's certainly how brother Ben sees it as well. While Jamie shapes up against a Mexican, Ben will go toe-to-toe with a hometown boy, Dexter Williams.
This is my life, this is what I want to do, and if I keep my head straight and I'm confident going all the way. Don King's got Chavez, so he'll be watching, and we televised all the way around the world, so I'm there to impress people.
They're already doing that. Zoo's promoter, Vlad Wharton, has included the pair in his stable of stars.
He can see that them going all the way. He's got faith in them. And this is the start of some extra experience to get them on their way.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
The Labor leader, looking to leave what he called a terrible week behind, clung to the cause of all that Delabosca trouble.
Our rollback will be directed towards making this GST fairer and simpler, and there are plenty of options available to us, and we'll look at them all.
No detail, but he promises the tax will be made simpler and fairer under Labor, deriding the government's claim there's nothing wrong with it.
Saying the GST is fine because big supermarket chains implemented it smoothly is like saying that just because you didn't notice your pocket being picked, you won't miss your wallet.
But even addressing the Australian Manufacturers Workers Union, he didn't find a complete ally. National Secretary Doug Cameron says Labor's free trade policies aren't fair, as Australian jobs go to low-paid foreign workers.
They are maintaining the tariff barriers, they are maintaining non-tariff barriers, some of them are exploiting working people, and we're being told we've got to compete with that at 60 cents an hour.
The Labor leader says low tariffs and free trade is the way to go. Other nations will have to change. In the meantime, his answer is the knowledge nation, or is that the clever country, where well-trained workers in new industries win jobs ahead of cheap labour. But there's no time to waste.
The Australian workforce is a skilled workforce, but its relativities to the rest of the industrialised world at the moment are declining. That's a problem.
David McElwain, NBN News.
It wasn't an ideal day on Newcastle Harbour, but the delegation from China's Qinhuangdao had little time to ponder the weather. The visitors from China's largest coal port were busy touring the world's biggest. The Sister City Agreement has been in place for 12 years, and the Chinese are impressed with the way the port is gradually diversifying.
For example, the expansion of the Eastern Basin Distribution Centre, and they're also up to date on the intended proposals of the BHP terminal.
Meanwhile, the world's second largest passenger catamaran is in the Four Jacks dry dock for repairs. The Top Cat, built in Tasmania, is 96 metres long with a beam of 26 metres. It carries 580 passengers and 240 vehicles with a cruising speed of 42 knots. Powered by 4 Caterpillar V18 diesel engines, it can fill an Olympic swimming pool in less than 20 seconds. It's hoped the vessel's builders, Incat, will use Four Jacks for more repair work. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
may not look like much, but this machine is worth $50,000, an amount of money researchers at Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital don't have, yet. In an effort to raise this money, Buttercup Bakeries is launching an appeal in the Central Coast, Hunter and Mid-North Coast regions.
We're going to appeal to the people of the Hunter to buy our most popular product, Super Sandwich Maker and Toasty, over the next 8 weeks. And what we'll be doing is contributing 50 cents from the sale of each one of those to this worthy cause.
The laser Doppler machine, currently on loan from Sweden, is a research tool used to help study the blood flow of premature babies.
It looks at the blood flow through small vessels in the skin, and the advantage to this is that it's completely non-invasive. It just shines a light onto the skin and looks at the blood flowing through. It doesn't hurt, and it is completely painless.
Lending her support to the appeal is Newcastle radio announcer Tanya Wilkes. Tanya has recently given birth to a preemie baby and still receives ongoing support from the neonatal intensive care unit.
I now have a greater understanding of the whole unit and how it works, so I'd love to be involved.
The appeal will start on July 24 and will run for 8 weeks. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News. The very term herbal medicine can conjure up many images. Some see them as the healing gifts of nature, for others they're just trendy hocus pocus. Researchers are now trying to discover their true worth. Around 10 patients are now using the herbs to treat their gastrointestinal ailments as part of a monthly clinic at Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital.
What we're trying to do here is to say we're willing to look at the other alternatives, see whether they work and learn from what they do for the patients.
Professor Bob Beatty started the pilot program after doing a year-long trial with herbs on hepatitis C sufferers, which proved successful in reducing their symptoms. It's thought the herbs boost the body's immune system.
We can say to our patients, we do have things that are claimed to make a difference to your disease, and we'll measure the appropriate things to see if those changes are occurring.
More studies into the worth of herbal medicine are currently underway around Australia. It's possible herbs may be helpful in the treatment of numerous conditions.
With more and more animal experiments and clinical trial, and we find more scientific evidence, and we can use for more different kinds of disease.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
more materials delivered, the heavy wire construction will continue a poor state of affairs, according to opposition spokesperson Patricia Forsyth.
You wouldn't put animals in the sort of facility that they're about to use. It's no better than a holding pen.
The Department of Juvenile Justice would not allow an inspection of the addition to the Warramai complex today. Meanwhile, the Minister's office took umbrage to any reference to a cage and said the new construction would simply be an enclosed walkway.
This is a walkway, this is not a holding area. Anybody moving in this walkway will be under the supervision of an officer. They will not be put in or held in this walkway.
But the opposition says the closure of Warramai as a detention centre last month has opened a raft of problems, forcing the new enclosure to be built as up to 10 and 12 juveniles are kept in small holding cells while they wait to be transported between detention centres in Sydney, Carryong and Grafton.
The Premier must intervene. He must intervene not only on this, but on the whole issue of the loss of a juvenile detention facility in the Hunter Valley.
It's long been known there's a gaping hole in Newcastle's tourist accommodation market, and now a Sydney developer is set to bring 191 rooms into the city.
There's definitely a need, that there's no doubt. Our real problem came about as to how many rooms. We first of all, as I said, started at 156 and decided it wasn't sufficient to allow for the growth that we predict that'll be coming to Newcastle.
Although it hasn't been announced who the operator of the hotel will be, developers say that it'll be a major international group.
150 jobs in construction and around 120 permanent jobs once it's up and running. So that's a lot of jobs.
The plans will see the redevelopment of the old covered parking space beside the Workers' Club and an 8-storey 3.5-star hotel take its place. The hotel will share the club's facilities, making the hotel specifically suited for conferences.
I see Newcastle becoming a tourist destination when these sorts of facilities are available, and people will indeed come here and stay here and take their one-day trips from Newcastle and go to places like the Vineyards and Port Stephens and so forth.
The development application has been lodged. If it gets the green light, construction could begin before Christmas.
Back on home soil, Lee Sterry had hoped the dramas of who was running Newcastle's National Soccer League club would have been solved.
I'm the ham and the sandwich and so are the players, and we haven't got a preference whether we work for John Palmer, Con Constantine or Donald Duck.
As it stands, property company True Blue is running the breakers but is still to get the green light from Soccer Australia for the playing licence. Major shareholder John Palmer met with Soccer Australia officials overnight but must provide additional financial information before the board makes their decision. Hopefully that'll be by Sunday night.
At the moment I'm working for John Palmer, that's the way I consider it. He's the one that's meeting the financial side of the club, and you know, as I say, he's meeting the commitments of the players and he's paying us on a weekly basis and been first class in doing it.
The player front looks much more decisive, with Brad Widgerek and Mark Wilson signing up today and talks continuing with 4 players from rival NSL clubs. However, veteran star Andy Harper is yet to make a decision on his future.
I know Northern Spirit chasing very hard for a position on the field but also growing into a position off the field next year, and I'd like to see Harps in that area in Newcastle myself.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Everyone starts off on the same line, but it doesn't take long for the young guns to pull ahead. The star attraction in the 9 to 11 years 80cc race was Australian junior champion Luke George from Cessnock and Dean Hibbard. For 5 laps of the 1.5 kilometre course, it becomes a mixture of dirt, dust and adrenaline.
Every race, even a club day, is pretty prestigious to a rider. They're out there to win and, yep, anything. They're just so serious.
Time for the big boys to stand up and deliver in the 250cc division, and right from the start, Cessnock's Glenn Ostergaard showed the others how it's done. The checkered flag was waved for Glenn in a Cessnock 1-2-3 ahead of Gavin Walter and Hayden Cornish. To a different kind of track where the real kind of horsepower was on display at Newcastle Showground in the Oakwood Show Jumping World Cup qualifier. Jeff Bloomfield won the event, finishing the course in 50.9 seconds. The team of 10 will travel to Sweden for the World Cup in April. Catherine Turner, NBN News.